Ever since the discovery of spectacular gold reserves in the Witwatersrand range of hills back in the 1880s, Johannesburg has stood out as the vibrant economic heart of South Africa. It is a bustling, cosmopolitan city, a result of its history of attracting migrant labour from the country's hinterland and beyond, as the gold rush drew workers, investors and speculators from around the world, rich and poor, African and Western. The gold mining sector is now in decline, but Johannesburg has been able to transform itself with the times. It is one of Africa's most modern urban centres, host to international banks, mining giants and global corporates, not only looking to benefit from South Africa's potential, but also to use it as a hub to tap into the potential of other faster growing economies across the continent. It is also a city where the first and third worlds often collide, illustrating the economic chasms in one of the world's most unequal societies. For example, the flashy business district of Sandton, with its malls, fancy restaurants, world-class hotels and gleaming office towers, lies just a short drive from the sprawling township of Alexandra, where many black South Africans live in shacks. When Michel Morand, a French chef, took a job in a restaurant in Johannesburg back in 1991, not long after the release of Nelson Mandela, he thought it would be a 1 or 2 year experience. His dream then was to move to Hong Kong, but he fell in love with the city. In the early 2000s, he opened his own restaurant to take advantage of the opportunities the new post-apartheid South Africa offered. He was forced to close the restaurant last year because of a new development on its premises, but his enthusiasm for the country's potential remains undiminished, and his latest venture is the launch of a high-end catering company.
Business have grown tremendously. When you think about restaurant, the kind of people who are going to restaurant have changed, and also the style of food we've been able to do them. Overall, a great opportunity to be in South Africa. There is a brand new market, and if we can call it the black market of coming to a more restaurant because unfortunately they couldn't go to restaurant during the apartheid time.
Racial tensions, a legacy of the decades of apartheid and segregation, do at times surface, and its high crime rate remains a blot on the city's image, with expats and locals often living behind high walls and electric fences. But since the end of apartheid in 1994, there has been increasing integration, and members of the growing black middle class have moved into the tranquil, leafy suburbs and other districts that were once the preserve of the white minority. The more affluent areas can take on a multicultural, almost European feel, with chic cafes and trendy bars, while other districts have a lively, distinctly African vibe.
When I first arrived, it was quite shocking to live in a house with alarm and fence, etc. But you get used to that type of thing. And I think crime have improved. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. If you look at the World Cup, it was a fantastic success. And I think we shouldn't be too focused thinking crime, 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 crime. The frustration that sometimes I wish that apartheid is very far away from us, and we've made that move completely away from what it's have made now. And I think that's a bigger thing. But on the term of our business, it doesn't create any problem for us.
South Africa's recovery from the 2008 global economic crisis has been sluggish. But as investor interest in Africa mounts, both from the east and west, the country is increasingly seeking to market itself as the launchpad to the continent. And Johannesburg is likely to be the destination where many expatriates heading to Africa could find themselves, particularly because of the high quality of its infrastructure compared to other cities on the continent. Jimmy Shiganga, a Kenyan, is one of the many Africans who have ended up working in Johannesburg. Jimmy moved here in 2005 and is the chief executive of Motjoli Resources, a mining company. He has numerous experiences in other cities across the continent, from Lagos to Nairobi, and he says it is Johannesburg's infrastructure that makes it stand out.
I classify Johannesburg as a first-class or world-class city. Compared to where I've been before, my home country in Nairobi, in Lagos and Cairo, I just find the availability of goods and services much better than other countries. And also the reliability of the goods and services. You can buy an item here and know that you can get service. You have recourse to your warranties or your guarantees and things like that as well. If you live in Nairobi, Nigeria, we used to call it bring your own infrastructure. Literally bring your own generators, bring your own water wells, etc. So I think in that sense, it's much easier. I think also just in terms of just getting resources, people as well, whether you're looking for experts, a lot of people think twice about having to move to Lagos, think twice about having to move to Cairo.
But there are also challenges of being an emerging nation, and because of the legacy of apartheid, race remains a sensitive issue, even for fellow Africans.
Race is sensitive, and we shouldn't just say 20 years on, get on with it. When somebody throws a derogatory remark at me, I look at it as bigotry. In South Africa, it's much more painful, for the individuals concerned here as well. So my approach to South Africans, of course, has to be much more, actually, for anybody trying to discuss race in this country has got to be much more sensitive in their approach.
The city's location in the High Veld, in the centre of the country, also means that there are lots of options for locals and expatriates seeking weekend getaways in the panoramic African countryside. Johannesburg's malls and retail offerings also mean Westerners can easily find most of the things they would at home. 8 years ago, Jennifer Roberti thought she had landed her dream job with Coca-Cola in the US. But days before she was due to start, the global advertising company she worked for offered her the chance to move to Johannesburg, where it had just secured an account with MTN, the mobile phone operator. At the time, she was 32 and single, and decided it was now or never. She is now a marketing executive at MTN. A New Yorker, she enjoys the shopping, restaurants and parks South Africa has to offer.
There's a million and one things to do within an hour or 2 hour drive. So you can be in the hustle and bustle of Joburg, you can be at 44 Stanley, in an hour you can be out at the Vaal, you can go up to Holliesburg, you can go fly fishing. So you feel like you can get out of the city if you need to, be out somewhere in the middle of nowhere, but you also are close to all the amenities that come with being in a big city. Obviously, the crime issue is something that anyone would be silly if they didn't take into consideration before they moved here. It's something you have to think about. So how are you going to live? How is that going to impact your day-to-day life? And I think the other thing is, you think 8 years ago versus today, the gap in what you would find here versus New York was actually much bigger. I think today there's very few things I can think of that, gosh, I really miss that from New York. I can't get that here.